It has always intrigued me that being born on Christmas Eve was that big of a deal to people. Oddly enough, they did it intentionally. In fact, they tried to wait till Christmas morning. I just was rather resistant. There are dates that matter. Your birthday will always matter. Your anniversary would always matter. Guys, pay attention. But there are other dates from a tax perspective that matter even more. We're going to talk about them today on Consider This Program. Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
I'm Grant Soliven.
We are happy to have you along, Grant. Grant is one of our senior advisors, part of the Financial Enhancement Group crew, one of 38, but he's also the manager of planning operations, and we are happy to have him along today. We're going to talk about ages that actually matter, that get into your financial planning, and what it is you should and maybe should not do. Many times there's confusion and mistakes. People need money, access to capital. They want to know where to put more money in. We're going to let Grant answer that for you. So, Grant, there's a few dates that you wanted to talk about, or a few birth dates, I should say, not just dates of the year. Dates of the year matter when we're talking about your 1040. Birth dates matter when we're talking about your retirement. So, what's the first date you want to cover?
100%. So, Joe, kind of laying the foundation for this segment today. Oftentimes when families come into our office, they look at the senior advisory team and our advisory team and say, guys, when is the earliest time I can pull money out of my retirement accounts? I don't want to pay penalties. And traditionally, we understand and know that 59 and a half, that magical date, is important because when you have money inside of Roth accounts or tax-deferred accounts, if you touch those dollars before 59 and a half, there's this thing called a 10% IRS penalty. We want to avoid that as much as possible. But there is another date that really few people understand or know is available to them. Because again, as most of the families we see, Joe, you know this, their largest asset, or sometimes only asset, is a 401k plan or an IRA. And so they say, Grant, I've just been laid off or I quit my job. I'm not 59 and a half. What do I do next? I have all these bills to pay and I can't touch my money. Well, 55 is still actually a very good birth date to remember if in an instance where you lose your job, you retire early, or you've been laid off. So those periods of time can be transition or triggers, and there's a date to know, 55, not just 59 and a half, but 55, that will help you in accessing capital without penalty.
So here's the issue that you've got to go along with that, and it is, and we talk about this a lot. I mean, Wall Street is aimed at serving Wall Street. And you guys, as you listen to the show, need to understand that. One of the uniquenesses of the Financial Enhancement Group is we teach you to spend your money. We help you get it out. And yes, we get paid to manage assets as fiduciaries, as registered investment advisors. That is our job. But we do our best to teach you to be able to spend and enjoy and use your money. So what Grant was just so eloquently putting is if you retire and you're over 55, and by retirement, that could be forced or determined by somebody else. If you're over 55 and your income, your earned income is low enough, you can actually get money out of the 401k plan without paying that 10% penalty. So you've just now heard it in two different voices. Same story. It doesn't mean you can go to work somewhere else and make $100,000 a year and not pay the penalty. You know, it's one of those safety nets that's inside of the 401k world, and it's very, very important to think about. Because here's what happens, Grant, when we see this all the time, right? Somebody who wants to sell annuities or some product tries to get you to take money out of the 401k so you can put it in an annuity. Once that money is gone to an IRA, it ain't coming back. You need to understand that, ladies and gentlemen. It is not coming back. This is why you need a fiduciary. It's Grant's job. It's my job to treat your money as if it were our money and we were in a similar situation. And I assure you, if I was 55, I'm 54 now, so this is getting closer. If I were 55 and thinking about retiring, there is no way in the world that I would roll that money into an IRA, or at least the amount of capital that I knew that I needed between 55 and the next important date, which Grant's going to get to in a second. There's no way that I would roll it there because of the penalty that's involved. Now, he's going to talk to you about an InService non-hardship distribution in a minute. That's another strategy and another option that you need to know that's out there. But pay attention to that 55 thing and do not let people lead you astray. Right? You want a fiduciary. You want somebody who's got at least a nickel in the game, right? And has done this for a while. All right, what's the next stage?
So another one, Joe, kind of looking at 59.5, the one we already brought up and kind of getting into, is a date that allows you to do, and Joe already said the words, do an in-service non-hardship distribution. I want to say that again, in-service non-hardship distribution. In most, if not all, 401k plans that we've seen, this is allowed, meaning that once you hit the ripe old age of 59.5, you can distribute dollars from the 401k plan to your IRA, even if you're still employed. So the question, Joe, is why would we do this? Well, hold on, I'm still working, Grant. Why would I ever want to pull money out of my 401k plan? Well, let's come to tax planning. Did you know that in a 401k, you can do Roth conversions if your 401k plan allows for Roth conversions? But there's a sticky rule, Joe. And the rule that gets everybody off guard is that a 401k plan will automatically withhold 20% federal taxes even on an internal conversion. Now, this gets people in trouble, and I've seen this. Some folks, they listen to us on the radio, and they say, Grant, Joe, Aaron, senior planning team, I would love that you guys think about taxes. And these Roth conversions, while the tax code's at a discount, fit my situation. But I'm going to do everything on my own in my 401k. And here's the kicker. 57 years old. Does the conversion and the plan by themselves. And the plan withholds the taxes. Well, Joe, it's a problem because guess what? The IRS is going to mail you a letter and say, hey, thanks for doing the conversion and paying your taxes. But because you withheld the dollars, which, by the way, you had no control over, we also are going to assess a 10% penalty on the withhold because you're not 59.5. So again, understanding the fiduciary responsibility of your own money and having someone like our team or others like us come in and help can help you avoid some of those tragic events like an internal conversion.
So we got I mean, everything he said was accurate, but I want to walk this through again so that people understand. So when you pull money out of a 401k, when you take a distribution, which a Roth conversion is considered to be, the IRS mandates, this is not your company messing with you, it's not anybody else. The IRS mandates if you're taking a distribution, a 20% withholding, right? So the tax code is at 10 and then 12 and then 22. So if you made more than $106,000 last year, right, then you're in the 22% bracket. Okay, they withheld 20%. But if you made less than that, and I'm talking about married filing jointly, you're in the 10% bracket, ladies and gentlemen, or 12% if you're in the top one, right? That's a lot less than 20. And what Grant just told you is that money is deemed as a taxable distribution. Yes, you pay taxes on tax money. I know. You don't have to explain to me. I get it. You have to pay taxes on tax money, and if you're under 59.5, you got whopped with a 10.5% or 10% penalty on top of it. That's just garbage, but it is the way it is.
It is the way it is. And then finally, Joe, another important age when we get into distributions is required minimum distributions. We've seen this more often than some people realize, but let's say you have a spouse and they're taking their required minimum distribution. And let's say they're the ones that had all of the resources in the 401k plan because they were the one that worked. Well, they pass away. You need income, but you're not at required minimum distribution age. What should they do? We've seen that come in so often, and I've had spouses look at us and say, Grant, how am I going to get the money? Where do I get the money? This IRA becomes mine. This 401k becomes mine. What do I do? And oftentimes, Joe, they forget that an inherited asset can remain inherited. A spouse does not have to take the money and put it in their name. They can keep it in an inherited account and receive those required minimum distributions to maintain their standard of living until they get to that magical age of 72 or 70.5, depending on when they took.
So Wall Street messes a lot up, Grant, and but this one I don't understand. When Wall Street messes up, and I mean your brokerage firms or people trying to sell stuff, when Wall Street messes stuff up, it usually is because they have a beneficial there's a beneficial issue for them in doing it. In this case, I don't know why they muck it up. I will tell you, if you got friends or family that are going through a divorce, this is a critical conversation. If you've got somebody who's lost a spouse, this is a critical conversation. You know, I have one family that's 30 years apart in terms of their age from a marriage standpoint, right? And so what I would do for one versus the other would be entirely different as a fiduciary in terms of how I would treat the money. And you guys need to be aware of that as you're looking at your capital and understanding what's going on. You know, my wife and I'm 54, she's 54. I have no intentions of leaving this planet anytime soon. When God's ready, I'm ready too. But in the meantime, we want to make the best financial decisions we possibly can. And the reason I have people in charge of my resources, if something were to happen to me, is so that these things are thought out. That's why we have a trust division at the Financial Enhancement Group. It's why we're prepared to be fiduciaries. It's why we've done this for almost 25 years. Next year will be our 25th birthday. It is complicated, ladies and gentlemen. It seems simple on the outside, but when you get to the inside, it's like the little owl licking the sucker, right? How many licks does it take to get to the middle? And it is a bundle. Hey, you're listening to Consider This Program. You got a question or comment, shoot us a call, 800-928-4001. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com.